In the summer of 1890, a small group of Arizona ranchers rode into the northern range to find out why their cattle were disappearing. They thought it might be cattle thieves or wolves, but the land felt empty the moment they entered it. Birds had left. Tracks stopped suddenly, and the sky felt heavy in a way that made their horses nervous. When darkness came, they realized something much bigger had already noticed them, and it was watching from above. So, before we continue, please make sure to leave a like and let us know where you're watching from. Thanks. I still remember the heaviness of that summer of 1890 on our land. The heat did not go away, even at night. The air over the bushes and red dirt around our ranch lay still and thick. Dust hung in the yard after every step, slow to fall. Cattle stood under the few mesquite trees with their heads down, ribs showing more than they should. We had lost too many cattle that year, and not just because of the dry weather. Something out there was taking them. My brother Caleb was the first to say it out loud at dinner. He pushed his plate away, wiped his mouth on his sleeve, and stared at our father across the table. "It is not wolves," he said. "Wolves leave tracks. They leave a mess. These dead animals look like they fell from the sky." Father did not answer right away. He chewed slowly, eyes down, like he could avoid the truth if he focused on his food. I looked between them, feeling the same worried thought grip my chest. I had seen the last 2 cows we found in the far field. Their legs bent in directions they should not. Their ribs cracked inward. There were no tracks around them, no drag marks, only crushed grass directly underneath. Our ranch sat in a wide valley of dry grass and scattered rocks with a line of low hills to the north and jagged cliffs to the east. Anyone who wanted to move cattle through that land had to know every dry riverbed, every dried-up stream, every bit of shade a man could reach on a long ride. I was 17 that summer. I had been riding fence and moving cattle since I could sit on a horse. But I had never seen anything like those broken animals. Coyotes had come after, but they had only torn at what was already destroyed. We were not the only ones with trouble. 2 days before our ride, a neighbor from the next ranch over, a man named Boyd, rode up with dust on his hat and dried sweat on his shirt. He climbed down, tied his horse, and walked straight to where Father and Caleb were checking equipment. "You losing animals up in your north range?" he asked. Father nodded once. Boyd spit in the dirt and rubbed his thumb along his jaw. "Same here. Same way. No tracks. Bones crushed in. My boys heard something at night last week. Said it sounded like big cloth snapping in a storm. No wind that night, though." I remember the way the yard went quiet. Even the usual noise from the kitchen stopped for a moment. I had heard something, too, nights before. I had lain awake on my bed near the window, sweat on my neck, and the sound had come faint through the open window, a heavy, slow beat, far off, with a low rumble that I felt more than heard. I had told myself it was distant thunder. There had been no clouds in the sky the next day. We decided that evening to ride out and watch the far range. Father could not afford to keep losing cattle. He chose 4 of us, himself, Caleb, me, and an older worker named Rios, who had worked our land since before I was born. When Father told him the plan, Rios looked out toward the eastern cliffs for a long breath. "That land is not right," he said. "Some things out there do not care if we understand them." Father frowned. "Do you have something useful to say, or only that?" Rios shrugged one shoulder. "I will ride. I will bring my rifle. That is all I can offer." We left before sunrise the next day. The stars still burned overhead when we tightened saddles and checked canteens. The lantern on the porch cast a small circle of light on the packed dirt. Beyond it, the night had a flat, empty look. Crickets chirped near the well. Our breath showed in faint thin clouds in the cooler air. Father got on his horse first, then Rios, then Caleb and I. The sound of hooves on the hard ground echoed against the barn and faded into the open. The sky began to get lighter behind the eastern cliffs as we rode. Colors changed from deep blue to gray, then to a pale wash of yellow. The land opened around us, low grass brushing our boots, occasional yucca plants standing alone. My horse moved with a steady rhythm under me. The leather of the saddle creaked in time with each step. I watched dust rise in small puffs from the hooves of the riders ahead. My shirt stuck to my back before the sun even came over the horizon. We aimed for a set of low ridges on the north side of our land. From there, we could see down over several low areas where the cattle liked to eat. That was where we had found most of the dead ones. As we rode, Caleb dropped back to ride beside me. "You heard it too, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I did not ask what he meant. "That sound 2 nights ago." I said, "Heavy, slow." "I thought it was thunder." He shook his head. I went outside when I heard it. There were no clouds, stars clear across the sky. The sound came from over those hills. He pointed toward the ridges we were riding toward. It stopped after a while, just ended like someone shut a door. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. I wanted to say it had been distant wagons or some trick of the wind. The image of those broken dead animals came back to me instead. By mid-morning, the heat had settled over us. The sun burned down without any shade. Sweat stung my eyes. The horses' sides darkened with wet patches. We found the small group of cattle we had left in the north field gathered near a thin line of shade along a rocky hill. They moved nervously when we came close, tails flicking, heads turning toward the sky more often than toward us. I had grown up around cattle. They usually watched the ground, searched for patches of grass, or focused on each other. That day, they kept glancing upward. We made camp on a low hill near the center of that part of the range. From there, we had a view in every direction. Father wanted to stay through the night and into the next day. If it was cattle thieves, we would see them. If it was a wild animal, we would hear it. We tied up the horses, set up a small fire ring, and laid out our sleeping rolls in a loose circle. No one talked much while we worked. Each of us paused now and then, eyes moving toward the ridges and the empty sky. By late afternoon, clouds formed in the distance to the west. They rose in a tall stack, dark at the bottom, with bright edges in the sunlight. There had been no sign of them an hour before. The air changed, carrying a faint smell of electricity that made the hairs on my arm stand up. Storm coming in fast. Father said he watched the clouds with narrowed eyes. We did not see a weather front this morning. Rios knelt by the fire and fed in a few more branches. "Sometimes storms rise from nowhere in this land," he said. "The old stories say they ride on something's back." The way he said it sent a small chill along my spine despite the heat. I looked at him, then at the sky. The clouds climbed higher, but the air around us stayed almost still. No strong wind picked up. No distant thunder rolled. It felt wrong, like half of what should be there was missing. Toward evening, we got on our horses again and rode a slow circle around the herd. The cattle moved uneasily, bunching together more tightly than usual. A few baby cows cried and pressed close to their mothers. The sun dropped behind the western clouds, turning the light flat and dim. Long shadows stretched from the few bushes and rocks. We checked the fence lines, which were rough and simple out there, more to guide the cattle than to hold them in. Everything looked undisturbed. We found the first sign near a dry wash at the bottom of the northern ridge. Caleb saw it before I did. He raised a hand and brought his horse to a stop, staring at the sand below. I rode up beside him and followed his look. There, pressed deep into the pale ground, was a mark I did not recognize. It stretched wider than my arms with long grooves at one end, almost side by side, each ending in a deeper hole. The sand around it had a scattered look, as if something heavy had hit from above and bounced or lifted away. Father and Rios joined us. Father got off his horse and stepped carefully around the mark, not wanting to mess it up. He crouched and touched the edge of the mark with 2 fingers. "Not a hoof," he said. "Not a wagon wheel, not a cat, not a bear." Rios folded his arms. "It fell hard," he said. "Whatever it was came straight down." I looked up without thinking. The sky above us held only high, thin wisps near the rising storm clouds. There were no birds in sight, no vultures circling, no crows, only empty blue and the dark wool of the distant clouds. We followed the wash a little farther and found another mark, this one shallower, as if something had brushed the surface rather than hit it. Beyond that, there was nothing. No trail leading away, no line of prints, just a wash curling along the bottom of the ridge and disappearing into a maze of rocks. My chest tightened with a feeling I did not want to name. The land I had known my whole life no longer felt familiar. The shapes were the same, but some unseen order had changed. I glanced at Caleb. His jaw was set, but his eyes moved across the sky in short, quick jumps. "We stay anyway," Father said. His voice sounded harder than before. "Whatever is doing this is not taking any more of my herd. We will keep watching pairs through the night." I did not argue. None of us did. Still, as we turned our horses back toward camp, I felt a weight settle between my shoulders. It stayed with me even after the sun went down and the first low rumbles began to reach us from the direction of the strange, fast-building storm. We ate a quick meal before full dark, dried meat and beans warmed over a small fire. The storm to the west had grown into a wide wall, forked flashes at the distant horizon in short bursts. A thin wind began to move across the grass, carrying a dry, charged smell that made the skin on my arms tighten. Our horses moved and tossed their heads more than usual, even though we had given them water and checked their equipment. Father laid out the watch schedule. He and I would take the first half of the night. Then Caleb and Rios would take over. The herd had drawn closer together near the hill where we camped, their bodies forming a thick patch of darkness against the pale ground. Now and then a low, worried moo reached us. There was no other sound except the crackle of the fire and the far-off rumble of thunder that did not seem to grow any nearer. When the last of the light disappeared, the sky turned very black between the scattered stars and the moving storm edge. We put out most of the fire to keep our night vision and sat a short distance apart, rifles across our knees. My eyes moved between the herd, the ridges, and the strip of sky above. My ears strained for anything beyond the insects and the faint movements of cattle. For a long time, nothing changed. After an hour or so, my thoughts drifted back over the day. The mark in the wash stayed in my mind. I tried to fit it into something I already knew. Wings did not leave marks like that. Hooves did not fall that wide. I thought of Boyd's boys talking about a sound with no wind to carry it. My chest felt tight again. I forced myself to breathe steady and keep my eyes moving. Sometime past midnight, the air changed. The wind dropped away until it barely moved the grass at our feet. The crickets stopped almost at once. The sudden quiet pushed against my ears. I looked over at Father. He had turned his head slightly, listening. He lifted one hand, palm flat, a signal to stay still. At first, I heard nothing. Then, a low pulse reached us from above. It did not sound like wagon wheels or hooves or any storm I had ever known. It came in slow, heavy beats. Each one carried a faint pressure that brushed against my chest and shoulders. Between those beats, an uneven rumble spread across the sky. It seemed to move from one part of the dark to another, hard to locate. The cattle reacted before I fully understood what I was hearing. A wave of movement passed through the herd. Some pushed against others, trying to press toward the center. Baby cows cried out high and sharp. One cow ran a short distance and then stopped, sides heaving. Our horses jerked against their ropes and snorted, eyes rolling white in the glow from the few remaining coals. The sound above us grew stronger. The slow beats came closer together. The pressure against my body got heavier as if the air itself had gained weight. I tilted my head back and squinted, trying to pick out a shape against the stars. For a few moments, I saw nothing. Then one section of the sky turned darker than the rest. It moved, sliding across the stars without any outline I could hold on to. They disappeared behind it and reappeared after it passed. Father rose to his feet in one smooth motion and lifted his rifle. "Do not shoot unless it comes for us," he said quietly. "We do not waste bullets on shadows." His voice was steady, but I could tell he was forcing it to stay that way. I stood beside him, rifle ready, mouth dry. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. The heavy beat swung wide over us and then swept out toward the herd. The cattle cried out and moved in a rough wave. Dust rose around them, faint in the dark. Something passed overhead again, lower this time. I still could not see a clear shape, only a wide blank space against the sky, too large to match any bird I knew. The wind that followed it carried a sharp smell, not rotting and not animal musk, but something mineral and harsh that made my nose sting. There was a single short scream from one of the cows. The sound cut off almost as soon as it began. I saw movement at the edge of the herd. A sudden lift and drop. Dust boiled up around that spot. The dark shape overhead jerked, then climbed with a slow, powerful rise. For a moment, as lightning flashed far up behind the storm, I saw more than before. A huge wing spread across the sky, feathers outlined in a pale glow from the distant flash. The width of it was bigger than any eagle I had ever seen. The tips of the feathers looked ragged, worn, and yet each stroke through the air carried enormous force. Beneath that wing, I glimpsed a hooked beak and a head that turned with sharp purpose, eyes reflecting a faint, cold glint from the lights on the horizon. Then the night closed over it again. The beats of its wings grew quieter as it moved away, carrying whatever it had taken. The herd stayed in motion for a while longer, moving around and crying, but no more animals fell. Slowly, the cattle settled into a tight, restless group. The crickets stayed silent. Even the distant thunder seemed to hold back. I realized I had not taken a full breath since the scream. When I finally forced air into my lungs, my chest hurt. I looked at Father. He kept his eyes on the sky a few moments more before lowering his rifle. His face looked tired in the dim light. "You saw it," I said. My voice sounded rough. He nodded. "I saw enough." We stood there in the thinning dark, not speaking until the air eased a little and some of the night sounds came back. When our watch ended and it was time to wake Caleb and Rios, I did not want to lie down. Sleep felt impossible. Still, Father insisted we keep the schedule. "We need clear heads tomorrow," he said. "Whatever that was will not be the last of our problems." When I shook Caleb awake and told him what had happened, he stared past me toward the herd. "It took one?" he asked. "Yes. Clean, fast, no sound after." He pulled on his boots, jaw tight. "Then it will come again," he said. "Nothing that hunts that way takes only once." I lay on my sleeping roll, but kept my eyes open. I listened to the second half of the night unfold in small pieces. Low whispers between Caleb and Rios, the occasional stamp of a hoof, one short burst of nervous cattle noise that died away quickly. The wing beats did not return before morning. At last, pale light spread into the sky, and I pushed myself up with stiff arms and a heavy head. The herd looked smaller in the morning. We rode out and counted. One full-grown cow was missing. No body, no blood, no torn ground, only a wide area of churned hoof prints where the cattle had rushed around. I felt an emptiness open in my chest. Seeing the missing cow in daylight pressed the truth in deeper than the brief vision in the dark had done. Father gathered us near the hill. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "We have a choice," he said. "We can drive the herd back toward the home fields and hope it will be enough to keep them safe, or we can stay out here and try to stop whatever this is." Rios looked toward the ridges. "If we move the cattle, it will follow," he said. "It has found easy prey. It will not forget." Caleb turned to Father. "We cannot just wait for it to pick them off," he said. "We may only get one chance to face it on ground we choose." I listened to them and felt a determination start to form under my fear. The thing in the sky was real. It had a body and weight. It left marks in the sand and gaps in our herd. If it existed in our world, it could bleed in our world. I held on to that thought as we argued over our next move. The smell of trampled grass and the memory of those crushing wing beats pressing in on us from every side. Father decided we would not return home yet. If we did, the creature could attack closer to the ranch house where there were more cattle, more horses, and less open ground. Out here, we had room to see it coming. We had ridges to climb for a lookout. We had space to drive it off or kill it if we could. None of us had the part we all knew. If we failed, it would follow us back anyway. The sun climbed into a pale, washed-out sky. The storm to the west drifted north without ever reaching us. The air still held that charred smell, faint but stubborn. We got on our horses again and moved the herd into a wider bowl surrounded by low hills. It was not a proper pen, but the hills gave some shape to the area. The cattle bunched up more tightly than usual, moving as if they expected the sky to drop something on them at any moment. While Father and Caleb rode ahead to check the far end of the bowl, I stayed back with Rios near the center of the herd. I watched the animals move and lift their heads, ears twitching, their bodies pressed close enough together that the heat rising from them made the air shake. I could hear their breathing and the steady click of hooves against loose stones. Every few minutes, one would snort and shake its head, glancing upward. "I have seen strange things in my years," Rio said as he checked the bullets in his rifle, "out in the mountains far south of here. But nothing with a wingspan that large." "You've seen something like this?" I asked. He shook his head. "Not this, never this. But I know when land is uneasy. This place has been wrong for weeks. The birds left before the heat came. Tracks disappear in the dust. The storms gather without water. You think it's tied to that thing?" "I think it is not alone," he said quietly. "Some places breed strange things. Maybe this one hatched in the cliffs. Maybe it wandered from somewhere farther. But nothing that size comes into a valley unless something has pushed it out or brought it in." His words stayed with me as we rode forward to meet up with Father and Caleb. They sat on their horses near the far ridge, looking toward a group of jagged rock towers rising from the ground like the remains of an old wall. A narrow path wound between two of them, barely wide enough for a horse. Father pointed toward the rocks. "Tracks in the dust," he said. "Not hoof prints, not boots. Something dragged across the ground there." Caleb leaned over his saddle and said, "The marks stop in the middle. Nothing leads out." I thought again of the mark we had found the day before. Something falling from the sky. Something lifting away. Something dropping out of sight into those rocks. We rode closer. The rocks towered above us in a crooked line, their surfaces rough and cracked, streaked with pale mineral lines. The shadows between them were deep even in daylight. The path in the center sloped downward enough that I could not see where it ended. I felt sweat gather at the back of my neck. We got off our horses and tied them to a low boulder. Father took the lead. Caleb followed. I went behind him, and Rios kept watch over our backs. As we moved into the narrow pass, the air cooled. The silence felt heavier. Even the cattle noise faded behind us until it was nothing but a faint hum. The ground inside the pass slanted toward a small flat area between the towers. In the dust there, I saw fresh disturbances, a wide drag mark, deep furrows where something heavy had been pulled or dropped, and a patch where the earth had pressed down in a shape too wide to make sense. I knelt and brushed a layer of dust aside with the back of my hand. Underneath, the dirt had hardened as if packed by tremendous weight. Caleb crouched beside me. He did not speak at first. His eyes scanned the ground, then the rocks towering above us. "It hides here," he said softly. "This is where it drops what it takes." Father stepped forward and looked at the area in silence, his jaw tight. "There's no blood," he said. "It didn't eat the cow here." "Maybe it carries things, Father," I said. "Or it has a nest," Rios murmured. That word pushed a cold feeling into my chest. A nest meant eggs. A nest meant more than one. I tried to dismiss the idea, but the marks around us suggested something large moving with purpose. Before we could look further, a deep shake passed through the rocks. It was not strong enough to shake the ground, but the vibration traveled through the air like a pulse. I looked up at the tops of the ridges. A shadow slid across them, too fast to catch properly, yet clearly huge. Father raised his rifle. "Back to the herd," he said. "Now." We climbed out of the pass and got on our horses quickly. The horses sensed the urgency and moved without hesitation. When we cleared the last rise and saw the bowl again, the cattle were already in motion. They pushed toward the southern side, their bodies heaving and moving. Dust rose thick around them. Above the herd, a dark shape circled. Thin sunlight caught the edges of its wings as it dipped and toned. Each slow flap sent a rolling pressure over the ground. The sound grew louder with every pass. The same heavy rhythm I had heard during the night. The creature angled downward, then climbed again, watching the herd with a hunting patience that twisted my stomach. "It's hunting in daylight," Caleb said. "It's not afraid of us." "It doesn't need to be," Rios replied. "It knows its strength." Father spurred his horse forward. "We need to break its pattern," he said. "If we scatter the herd, it may lose focus." "What if that makes it worse?" I asked. "We have no choice," he said. "It will pick them off one by one if we let it." We rode hard into the bowl. Dust churned beneath the horses' hooves. Cattle rushed away from us, their panic rising. The creature above changed its flight, its dark body tilting with controlled precision. I could see its head now, long and sharp-beaked, with eyes fixed on the moving mass below. As we cut through the herd, trying to create pause on purpose and push some animals toward the hills for cover, the creature swooped lower. The wind from its wings hit us like a sudden drop in air pressure. My hat nearly flew off. My horse stumbled, then recovered. "Keep moving," Father shouted. The creature passed overhead again. I lifted my eyes for a split second. The underside of its wings stretched across the sky like a living roof of dark feathers. Beneath its chest, I saw the curl of talons long enough to pierce through a cow's side. Its feathers moved in layers, each one edged in a dull flat shine. Caleb rode alongside me. "We cannot outride it," he said. "If it wants one of us, we're too slow." "We stay together," I said. "It will go after the cattle first." Before he could answer, the creature turned its body sharply and dove. The sound of it dropping tore through the air. It aimed for a group of cows near the far end of the bowl. One animal broke away and ran. That was all the creature needed. It hit the cow with an impact that sent dust flying outward in a thick ring. The cow screamed once and then went silent, but it did not lift away this time. It stayed on the ground. The sight of it standing there in the dust sent a jolt through me. Its legs were thick and powerful, ending in talons already buried in the cow's flesh. Its neck curved as it gripped the animal. The top of its head reached higher than any man. Its feathers lay close to its body, dark and rough, moving with each breath it took. The wings folded halfway, but even half-folded, they cast a wide shadow across the bowl floor. Father pulled his horse to a stop. "This is our chance," he said, "while it's on the ground." Caleb looked at me, eyes wide, but nodded. I swallowed hard. The creature bent over the cow, tearing at the hide with that curved beak. It did not seem concerned with us. That changed when Father fired the first shot. The crack of the rifle echoed off the ridges. The bullet struck the creature's shoulder, sending a burst of dark feathers into the air. It let out a sound that shook the ground beneath us, a deep vibrating shriek that pressed into my chest and rattled my teeth. It turned its head toward us in one sharp motion. Its eyes locked on us. They were dark with a bright, narrow ring around each center. Cold, focused, a hunter's stare. Then it spread its wings. The wings opened so wide that for a moment the sun disappeared behind them. Dust lifted in a rolling wave as the creature braced itself. I gripped the reins hard and steadied my rifle. The air filled with a rough scrape of feathers moving into place. The creature stepped forward from the fallen cow, its talons leaving deep marks in the ground. "Spread out," Father yelled. "Make it choose." We spread out on horseback without needing more direction. The creature tracked our movement with quick jerks of its head. Its wings rose and fell in small pulses, not yet launching, but building force. I could feel the ground shake beneath my horse's hooves. Father fired again. The shot struck the creature's side. It flinched, wings twitching upward. Caleb and I fired next. One bullet grazed its wing, the other buried into its side. More feathers scattered, but it did not stumble. Instead, it lifted its head higher, its beak opening with a short, sharp cry. That sound pierced more than the one before. It stung the inside of my ears and pushed the pressure down my throat. Rio spurred his horse forward, bringing him closer than the rest of us dared. He rode between two groups of cattle, using the dust they kicked up as a partial screen. He lifted his rifle and aimed for the creature's eye. The creature moved before he fired. It lunged, wings slamming downward in a single violent motion. The rush of air struck Rios' horse from the side. The horse reared and twisted, nearly throwing him. Rios held on with one hand, clenching the reins and leaning low. His rifle went off. The shot fired wide. The creature closed the distance between them in a few strides. Its talons smashed into the ground where Rios had been a heartbeat earlier. Dirt sprayed upward in a hard arc. Rios jerked his horse aside just in time, but the creature's beak snapped shut inches from his leg. The horse screamed and ran, carrying Rios away from the creature's reach. Father and Caleb fired again. I joined them, forcing myself to breathe slow and steady. One bullet punched into the creature's wing bone. It shuddered and hissed, feathers standing up. It turned its full body toward us. Its wings rose, reached their fullest width, and then slammed down again with a force that shook the bowl. It took to the air. A sheet of dust rose beneath it. The cattle scattered in all directions. The horses danced sideways, hooves scraping rock. I ducked low in the saddle as the creature surged upward, its wings pumping with heavy, purposeful strokes. It gained height, circling above us, shadow gliding across the ground. Caleb reloaded fast, hands moving on instinct. "It's watching for an opening," he said. Father kept his rifle trained upward. "We hold position. Don't run. If we scatter, it will single one of us out." The creature banked to the right, its wings bent slightly, catching the rising heat. It circled once, twice, then tipped its body downward. The angle sharpened with each second. I realized where it was aiming before anyone said a word. It was coming for me. My breath stopped. I turned my horse, kicked hard, and leaned low along its neck. The creature dropped with a speed I could hardly follow. The sound of its wings beat against my back. Dust swirled around me in thick clouds. I heard the creature's cry, deep and strong, closing the distance. A shot rang out, Caleb's rifle. The creature swerved mid-dive, veering slightly off its path. Its talons raked the air where I had been an instant before. My horse stumbled, but caught its footing. I did not look back. I kept riding until Father's voice cut through the chaos. "Turn. Don't let it chase you alone." I forced myself to pull the horse around. The creature climbed, its wings dragging a long shadow across the ground. I saw a streak of dark blood on its left side. Its flight wavered for a moment. It was not enough to weaken it, but enough to slow it. Father motioned us in. "Stay tight. We make a wall." We formed a rough line, rifles raised. The creature circled above, getting lower with every pass. It studied the new formation, its movements less smooth now. The wound on its side dripped a slow trail that fell in thin streaks to the ground. Rios rejoined us, breathing hard, hat missing, sleeve torn. "We hurt it," he said, "but not enough." The creature folded its wings partially and dropped again. This time, it aimed not for a single rider, but for all of us at once. It came in low, wings fully spread, talons reaching forward. We fired together. The shots cracked through the air in rapid bursts. Feathers burst from its body. One bullet struck its shoulder joint. Another hit near its throat. A third buried deep into its lower chest. The creature lost speed. Its wings stumbled. Instead of sweeping over us, it crashed into the ground with force that sent dust flying high into the air. The shake knocked my horse sideways. I hit the ground hard. The breath knocked out of me. I rolled, ears ringing, vision blurred by dust. Through the haze, I saw the creature pushing itself upright. Its wings beat weakly, kicking up loose dirt. Its head swung side to side, searching. Its eyes were darker now, unfocused, but still dangerous. I heard boots running. Caleb reached me first and pulled me to my feet. "Can you stand?" I nodded, though my legs shook. Father approached the creature, rifle raised. Rios moved with him, staying on the opposite side to flank it. They moved forward slowly, careful not to get close enough for a final strike from its talons. The creature staggered, but managed to spread its wings halfway. It let out another deep cry, weaker than before, but full of fury. Caleb pulled his second rifle from his saddle and handed it to me. "If it charges, aim for the head," he said. "Nothing else will stop it." I steadied myself, fingers tight on the grip. The creature shifted, dragging one wing across the ground. Its chest heaved with strained breaths. Blood trickled from multiple wounds, staining the dust dark. Father stopped 10 paces from it. He lowered the barrel slightly, studying its movements. "It's weakening," he said. "One more push." The creature raised its head and locked eyes with him. The strength in its stare tightened something in my chest. There was no fear in its look, only defiance. It lunged, not into the air, but forward. It moved faster than I expected. Father fired. The bullet struck its neck. Caleb fired a split second later. His shot hit just above the creature's right eye. The impact snapped its head back. Its body swung sideways, legs buckling. It hit the ground and slid in a long drag of feathers and dust. A silence fell over the bowl. Even the cattle seemed to wait. The creature tried to rise again. Its wings flexed, its talons curled. It lifted its head a few inches, but could not keep it up. Its breath rattled and thinned. Its eyes unfocused completely. After a final shallow breath out, its body sagged into the dirt. Everything went still. Father approached carefully, rifle trained on its eye. He nudged its beak with the toe of his boot. No reaction. He stepped closer, looked at the chest, then the wings, then the head. "It's dead," he said. My legs almost gave out in relief. Caleb let out a hard breath and leaned on his saddle. Rios ran a hand across his face, shaking his head slowly. I walked toward the creature's body. Up close, its size became overwhelming. The wings stretched wider than any wagon we owned. The feathers were rough and heavy. Its beak, curved and sharp, looked strong enough to snap a man's arm. The talons, thick and hooked, had punched deep into the ground during its last movement. "This thing has ruled this valley for years," Rio said. "Maybe longer." Father did not reply. He stared down at the creature for a long moment, jaw set, eyes distant. "We don't tell the neighbors anything until we ride home with proof," he finally said. "They need to know it's gone. They won't believe it otherwise." Caleb rested his rifle against his shoulder. "We haul it back." Father shook his head. "We can't drag something this size without breaking it to pieces. We take feathers, talons, enough to show what we saw." Rios nodded. "That will be enough for them. Enough for anyone." I stood beside the creature, my breath still uneven, dust thick on my clothes. The memory of its flight, its cries, the force of its wings, all of it pressed through me in heavy waves. I felt the weight of the morning settle into my bones. But beneath that weight was something else. A slow, steady calm. We faced what hunted us. We survived. And now, standing in the quiet bowl with the fallen creature before us, I knew the story of that day would follow me for the rest of my life. Father told us to get knives from the saddlebags. We walked toward the creature with care, even though its body lay still. Nothing that size died quietly, and none of us were ready to trust that its strength had fully left it. But as we stepped close, the air around it held no movement. The ground beneath its chest no longer rose and fell. The finality of its stillness sank in slowly. Up close, its feathers were heavier than I expected. They lay in layered rows, thick and dense, almost more like armor than feathers. Caleb pressed his palm against one. "This is tougher than leather," he said. "You'd need a sharp blade just to cut through the edge." Father pulled one long feather free near the wing joint. It came loose with a faint crack. "We take a few from each wing," he said, "and 2 talons. That's enough to prove it." The talons were curved, heavy, and cold. When I ran my thumb along one, I felt the subtle ridges near the point. I imagined those ridges gripping a cow's hide or man's shoulder. The thought made my chest tighten. I cut 2 free with slow, careful motions. They thudded onto the ground when they dropped, as solid as iron. While we worked, Rio circled the creature, studying the throat, the wound on its side, the width of its wings. He paused near the head and crouched. He touched the feathers along the creature's neck, then the hard curve of the beak. His brow creased. "What is it?" Father asked. Rios did not answer right away. He brushed dust off the beak, revealing faint grooves carved across its surface. "These aren't from cattle," he said. "These are old marks, deep. Something fought this thing years before today." Caleb walked closer. "Another of its kind." "Maybe," Rio said, "or another predator. Whatever left these marks wasn't small." The idea of more creatures like it, or something stronger, hung in the air. I tried not to let it settle. We had enough fear to wrestle without imagining new ones. Once we gathered what we needed, Father stepped back. "We leave the rest. Nature will take it. Nothing will challenge it now that it's dead." Caleb looked toward the ridgeline. What if it wasn't alone? Father answered without hesitation. "If there were more, they wouldn't have let us take this one. Predators protect their ground. This one was hunting alone and guarding its kills alone." It was not total comfort. Not entirely. But it was enough to make us move. We got on our horses. My horse trembled at first, ears pinned back. But once I settled in the saddle and whispered to it, the animal calmed enough to move. The cattle had regrouped far across the bowl. Their bodies formed a tight group, their calls low and worried. We guided them home with slow movements, using our presence more than our voices. None of us wanted to shout or make noise that carried across the land. The ride back was long and quiet. The sun climbed higher, dragging heat across our backs. Dust rose from the cattle's hooves in soft waves. The edges of the bowl and the ridges behind us took on a strange stillness, like the land had been holding its breath all morning. Caleb rode at my side for a while. His shirt was torn and there was dry blood along his sleeve. Not his, but from some close moment during the chaos. He kept his eyes ahead, jaw tense. "You all right?" I asked. He nodded once. "I still feel it," he said. "The force of it, the size. I didn't think anything on land could be that strong." I didn't either. He glanced at me. "When it went for you, I thought it had you." "I did, too," I admitted. His eyes narrowed a little, not in anger, but in thought. "We won't forget this," he said. "No matter what the neighbors say, no matter if no one believes us. They'll believe when they see what we brought." "That's not what I mean," he said. "We saw how small we are out here. I don't think I'll walk the range the same way again." I did not answer. There was not anything to add. By the time we reached the lower fields, the heat pressed so heavily that the air shimmered. The cattle moved slower, tongues out, sides heaving. We guided them toward shade and water, making sure none collapsed. Even the ranch buildings in the distance looked different. Closer, safer, yet somehow smaller against what we had faced. Boyd was waiting at the fence line. He must have seen us from the ridge near his property. He came toward us with long, quick steps, dust rising around his boots, his face pinched with worry. "You drove them back early," he said. "I thought you were staying out there 2 nights." Father got down from his horse. He untied the bundle from his saddle. 2 long feathers and 2 talons wrapped in cloth. He unrolled the cloth at Boyd's feet. Boyd bent over them. His hand hovered, then touched one of the talons. His fingers trembled. He did not look up for several seconds. When he did, his face had lost color. "Where did you get these?" he whispered. Father's voice stayed level. "Out on the North Range." "You killed it." Father nodded. Boyd stared at the feather again. "My boys heard it last week. I told them it was thunder. God help me." He stepped back as if the objects on the ground carried heat. "Others need to see this," he said. "They won't believe it without proof." "We'll show them," Father said. "But one thing at a time. We need to see to the herd." We brought the cattle into the fields while Boyd rode off to gather the nearest families. The ranch workers came out from the barn, drawn by the noise. They watched us unload the gear, their eyes following the wrapped bundle like it held something alive. Mother stepped onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. The moment she saw our faces, her look changed. "What happened?" she asked. Father did not answer right away. He placed the bundle gently on the porch rail, unwrapped it, and showed her the feathers and talons. Her breath caught in her throat. She reached out, touched the edge of one feather, then pulled her hand back as if the thing might still move. "Was it near the house?" she asked, voice strained. "No," Father said, "but it could have come this way sooner or later." She looked at me, then Caleb, then Father again, relief mixed with fear in her eyes. "You're all right." "We're here," Father said. We washed the dust from our faces and drank cold water from the well. My muscles ached from the fall and the long ride. My hand shook more than once when I tried to hold the dipper. People arrived soon after. Boyd and his sons, the mayors from the south section, and a few men from the next ranch over. They gathered on our porch, eyes fixed on the feathers and talons. There was confusion at first, then disbelief, then a quiet awe that settled into silence. One of Boyd's sons leaned close. "Is it bigger than these make it look?" Father nodded. "Much bigger." Another man swallowed hard. "Was it alone?" "We didn't see another," Father said. The questions continued. How did it die? Were we sure it wouldn't return? How long had it hunted the valley? Father answered what he could. We stayed near him, listening, adding details when asked. By sunset, the crowd thinned. People rode home with the weight of the truth on their faces. Some looked shaken. Some looked grateful. All looked changed. After the last rider left, the yard grew quiet again. The sun dipped behind the hills. A pale glow stretched across the sky. I leaned against the porch rail, staring out at the darkening fields. Caleb joined me. He nudged my shoulder lightly. "Feels like the land knows," he said. "Like it's calmer now." I listened. The air held no strange pressure, no distant rumble, no heavy beats rolling across the valley. "It does," I said. Father stepped out onto the porch, arms folded. He looked toward the North Range. His eyes softened a little, though the hard lines of the day still marked his face. "It's over," he said. I wanted to believe that, and in many ways I did. But a quiet thought lingered at the edge of my mind, hard to ignore. If one creature like that could live in our valley for years without any of us knowing, then what else waited out there in the open stretches of land we had always assumed belonged to us? Still, the night settled peaceful and clear. The sky stretched wide and calm above the ranch. No wing beats crossed it. The creature was gone. The valley was quiet,